Hello. Come on, dear. The kitty trying to decide if she'll want to come up. She probably will. She's really eyeballing the lap. I don't know if that's going to work or not, Jer. You give it a whirl if you need to. I'm here for you. Okay? Hi. Hi, how are you? That's good. That's good. Oh, there she is. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Jer. This is my brother's cat. I'm at my brother's house again today. I got privacy again today. I'm really loving that. Oh, and the other thing that I'm really loving is that I don't have like a single bit of an agenda. You can't bite that. You bite that. Yeah, I got no agenda. I got like no notes. I got no plan. And yeah, that's trying something new. Trying something that feels aligned with a sense of truth that lets me relax on a deeper level. And I want more of that. I want more of that in my life. I want more of that lightness. I want more of that, like letting myself off the hook for doing it right or doing it good or like whatever kind of notion I have in my mind that I have used in the past to guide myself with these notions that I soaked up along my path, these lessons about how to live life that I got handed when I got here. And, you know, we had the Aquarius full moon yesterday, and so much has been illuminated this week for me around my true nature. And like how I summarized the Aquarius full moon for Dolly, because she's not super into astrology. So I try to like make it as like, you know, anybody can appreciate what I'm talking about kind of thing. So yeah, I boiled it down like the Aquarius full moon is going to show us a little bit more than what we knew already about what is your true nature. And the Aquarius full moon plus the Lionsgate portal that we just came through and are kind of still in the tail end of today, that it's also showing us like what patterns are we currently participating in and choosing that aren't aligned with our highest self, our inner truth, kind of however you want to think about that. A big piece of the clarity that came this week feels more like it came through the Lionsgate portal. It was like the day before. It was 8/7. It was August 7th, which I think would have been Sunday. It was that morning that I was watching an interview with Elizabeth Gilbert, and she was talking about how she writes a letter from love, capital L, love is how she calls it, to herself every day. And that's how she starts her day, is she writes this love letter from love, universal love, to her. And in a different interview, she talked about it with very similar process, but with using, like, she's writing to God. She's not writing to like any defined God from out in the world, more like her own personal higher power, like what kind of divine support does she personally need, and that was like what her higher power was there for, her God. So that's who she's writing to. And so that really stuck out to me as something that I just felt like I needed to try this. I needed to basically just like practice that for a little while and see what happens. And so every day since then, I've been like starting my morning, or pretty close to the start of my morning, with writing. It's very simple. She says, like, you know, just kind of write dear God or my God, and what will you have me know today? What is it that's relevant information to where I'm at on my path right now today? And so far, all my God has really told me, which it's just universal love and compassion. Like, that's really all God has to say, is that you are so loved. You are so loved. This has also come through as far as like I've been like kind of reaching for practicing my sense of enoughness, my sense of self-worth. And like God keeps saying like it's not even that you're enough, because you're everything. You're everything. The concept of enough doesn't even make sense in relation to who and what you really are, which is divine in nature. Like, you're an extension of me. You're an extension of God energy itself, like source energy, non-physical energy itself. We all are. We all are like divine beings. And our humanness is wired for all kinds of experiences that are absolutely right on track and right on time. Things that we wanted to experience, that's why we came at this time. Things that we wanted to experience in the physical that help us to continually get greater and greater and greater clarity, not on what's wrong with the world and how to fix it, but who are you? Who are you? Like, at your core energy, the core essence of your being, who are you? And I think like this ties into self-worth, it ties into self-trust. I've been deep in my waters this week as far as like when I take in an idea like, you're not just enough, you're everything. That it like bumps up against programming, like Aquarius type conditioning programming that says like, it's saying you're enough, you're everything. And this says, no, you're not. You haven't done this, you haven't done this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Like, there's programming in there that it like bumps up against when I try to absorb an idea like, you're not just enough, you're everything. And that's really, really the point of the Lionsgate Portal. I was visiting with someone, it was such a good conversation, where they were talking about like their understanding of the Lionsgate Portal after kind of listening to some talk about it, was that it's a powerful time for like setting new intentions and like launching out into the world, like clarity around what you want, kind of thing. And I'm so grateful also for Matt Kahn and his work. He launched his Angel Academy 14. This past Monday was the first night. The second one is this coming Monday. Enrollment is still open if you're at all interested. The first session was over healing shame. And because it was on 8/8, he started by talking about the Lionsgate Portal. And I love him so much. I love his perspective as far as like, the way that a lot of people can talk about like things like the Lionsgate Portal or full moons that are great for manifestation as well. Like, there's almost like, then if you're not using it to like set powerful intentions, you feel like you're like doing it wrong, or that you're like wasting this opportunity, or like it's just one more thing that you like fail at, kind of thing. And I love the way he described it, because there's no way to fail. There's no way to fail at this version. And that's awesome. So that feels like relief. It feels like kind of like a letting yourself relax into whatever comes through that portal. Because ultimately, what is coming through the portal is our own, like getting to glimpse our own higher understanding of the path that we're on. And that includes a lot of things. That includes like getting to see the beauty and the like literal sparkle of the beautiful soul that you are, the beautiful individuality and uniqueness that you are. And it's because it's such a clarity at that like higher frequency where you can see everything. It's that bird's eye view of like the bigger picture. You can also see like what are the unconscious patterns that are still looping inside of you that are keeping you at a denser frequency than this higher self perspective. So yes, it can absolutely be a powerful moment of getting to connect with like who you really are. But also probably for all of us, I know for me, certainly, and it sounded like my friend that I was talking to the other day, like also that there can be a lot of like shadow type stuff that comes through, and that it really, oh, it feels so good to get to have this conversation where basically I want to say like the bottom line is like when you're in negative emotion, like nothing has truly gone wrong. Like there's nothing breaking down or off track when you feel negative emotion. Like so often, and I know I've fallen into this too, and even on my channel, like talked like this. So I, I evolve and I do my best from wherever I am. But it's like there is such a phobia of like speaking about pain and hurt and like coming off like a victim, or not wanting to talk about things that you don't want to amplify and create more of. And all that really does is like set up a pattern of avoidance. And when we when we try to run away from something, like it just like it's just not possible. So the only way to heal shame, as Matt Kahn went on to talk about in his session the other night, was like shame is an ascended master dressed up as pain and suffering. And shame serves to be an immovable object whose function is to break down the spiritual ego. Because no spiritual practice on earth can heal that sense of being wounded, other than basically how he put it is like admitting what hurts, like telling the truth about I was hurt like this. This is who hurt me. If you know, if you don't, doesn't, I mean, you can say you don't know, but you still have the giving a voice to that inner hurt that is powerful. Because at its heart, the sensation of shame comes from, on one side, a powerful desire to be seen and heard. And that really never goes away, except when we're wounded, when our feelings are hurt, when people don't receive us in a loving way. And then we remember that, okay, well, when I do this, then they hurt me. Like as you rack up those wounds, like death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing, like all those little things pile up on this other side of feeling unworthy of being seen and heard. And so when we avoid our pain, there's a level of self-rejection that's going on that I think can end up keeping you stuck if you listen only to like Abraham Hicks is the teacher that found me in my darkest time and led me out of the darkness of the forest of doom or whatever, like gave me so much. And at the same time, like I think there's people that you hear in her recordings where they're like, I've been listening for 20 years and like I just can't get this. And I think there is a time and a place and a level of intimacy between people that gets created when you're willing to voice what hurt you, when you're strong enough to put your weaknesses on the outside. And that's not something that you show to just anybody. Like that is not at all what I'm saying. Like I'm not advocating full transparency like every day, all day long. But like one of the cards that I've been drawing a lot lately is the Three of Pentacles. And that to me is all about community and all about like what's possible between even a couple people that is not possible when you're by yourself. Like there is a synergistic effect because when you put this person plus this person, the relationship between the two is number 3. So that you create something that like wasn't there before. And this is such a time of putting ourselves out there in spaces where we feel safe enough to even just 1% more like put ourselves out there and allow ourselves to express possibly like the things that have hurt us the most, if any of that is still in there, which in my case, like as he's rattling off all the things that hurt us as humans, like being lied to or used or betrayed, or you've lost something that really mattered to you, or there's so many different ways that we can rack up these little hurts that if those aren't being processed, it's just a giant unending pile. There's no top end to what that accrual can look like, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And that, as he said, like, you know, there's a kind of a mantra in the new age, like spiritual community that's evolved over the last like however couple decades or whatever, like as it's become more mainstream, about a lot of talk about victimhood and like not being a victim and like don't you dare come off like a victim or whatever. And he defines victim as suffering in silence, not feeling worthy enough to get to heal your own pain, to get to heal your own story. Victims don't talk about their pain. So the second that you're in a space of acknowledging that this hurts, that I'm hurting, I'm sad, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling unsure, I'm feeling insecure, I'm feeling like there's an acknowledgement piece that I think that's the piece that can be missing when you do get into an area like toxic positivity, where it's all about like flip the thought to positive, just skip straight to the positive. And there's like truly an inner child inside of you that was the one who was hurt, and like still to this day, like never got to tell that story, like never got to like have her day in court. Like whether you end up getting to tell the person who hurt you or just say it out loud in an empty room, the willingness to give the microphone over to the part that maybe still is hurting, that takes so much worthiness. Like telling your story of your pain and even talking out loud about what you're still actively working on healing. Like I've heard, I think this was in an Elizabeth Gilbert interview too, where she said like one of the most generous things a human can do for humanity is to learn in public, because so many people are running around pretending like they got it all figured out, and basically nobody does. And so like the people who are willing to like stand up and say like, this is still what I'm working on, like I'm not perfect yet, I made this mistake and I really don't know what the answer is, or like I still struggle with this and it overpowers me sometimes, like there is so much worthiness in that, like so much, like so much love for yourself to be able to say like, this person hurt me, that hurt my feelings. Pretending to be tough, those are the victims. Pretending to be perfect, they are the victims. Like owning your story out loud, even the parts where like, yeah, that was a dark chapter, like learning to tell that story with love for the whole entire narrative, like that, there's no victimhood about any of that. So I was really, really happy to receive that piece from him, because again, I think I think it's easy to get down on like victimhood or when people share their pain with us because so like another thing that's kind of rampant in our society is this sense of like fixing it. Like how are you going to fix that? Like what's the solution? There's a problem, I got to solve it. And that piece of like when you sense that somebody is in pain or is suffering and you don't know how to fix it, like basically like he says, he's like, just because somebody cannot hear about your pain because of the pain that it brings up in them, that maybe in this moment of their life they would rather avoid that pain than to face it and process it and heal it. And that's why you would call somebody else a victim, because like you're not ready to be done with your internal silent suffering where you haven't yet admitted that there are wounds left to heal. And that again is so powerful because I know like there have been people in my past where I have a hard time being around them, where I'm like, they're too negative or whatever, they drag me down. And it's like, the only reason that that can happen is because I'm trying to like get involved and fix whatever it is that I'm sensing is going wrong for them. And that's like kind of going back to the conversations with my God that I've been having. There is another common theme that I'm noticing, because if I ask God something, pretty much as when I ask my God something, like I want to make that crystal clear that that's what I'm talking about, my God, my personal higher power. When I ask my God something like, what do you think about this? What should I do about this? Like, what is the truth between this? The only thing, it's almost frustrating, but like in a loving way. The only thing God has when I ask a question is a question back to me. That's like, so when I say like this was a good one where I said like, will you please help this person who is struggling, who like can't see the good in themselves? And it was somebody else, it wasn't me. And like, can you help them? And God said, I mean, I could, but why do you think that they need help? I said, because they're suffering. Like, shouldn't they be happy? Shouldn't they like, feel better? And God asked me again, like, why do you think they should be different than they are? Like, where is that coming from, where you've decided that being in suffering is somehow less than being happy? Like, definitely helping. I mean, I don't know. I could be talking to my own imagination. I don't think it really matters. But this particular dialogue has really helped me to see how truly conditional I really am, and how like I'm doing it to myself most of all. But because I'm doing it to myself, because I'm being conditional with myself and like always pushing myself to be more and do more and be better and do better and more and more and more, like there's nothing wrong with wanting expansion, but there's like I've drawn the devil card a lot lately, and it's like, yeah, like that self-expectation that you're a slave to your own self-expectation, that like you do have to get better. And when you don't feel good, you do need to feel better. You need to get healthy. You need to be taking like awesome care of yourself. Like you need to be doing all these things. And God keeps asking me, why do you think that? Where did you get that you need to do anything? Who told you this? Where does that come from? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But I see what you mean. Like, where do those ideas come from? Those pressures, those self-expectations that we put on ourselves, where do those come from? Why do we think we need to do anything? Why do we think we need to be anything different than where we are? Like, that's been something else I've kind of been thinking about, is the sensation of feeling stuck. Like, that's another one that I'm like, how do you, like asking God, like, how do you get unstuck? And God's pretty much like, why do you think you are? Like, why do you think that you should be somewhere different than where you are right now? What's wrong with where you are? Like, let's dig into that. Like, why do you feel like you need to be somewhere different? And so, yeah, these questions back and forth have been so helpful to let me see, like truly the most powerful thing you ever contribute is simply by showing up and like putting your presence in that space. And that means that it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how anybody takes what you say. It doesn't matter what you do. Being in the space, you have met every checklist that ever was. And even then, picking out which spaces to be in, like that is part of the great joy and delight of getting to be in this paradise that is this earth. Like getting to choose which spaces feel like greater freedom, which spaces feel like greater relaxation. You know, like I was listening to this book, The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck, and it's very good. Would highly recommend. I'm not all the way through it yet. I'm only like a few chapters in, but whoa. And I watched this interview with her. It's on this week's live stream prep playlist, by the way. I watched this interview with her where they were talking about something that's in the end of the book, which is the power of 1 degree turns, and how there is like big changes fail. Like that, when you're trying to change too fast, like too much too fast, it's just too big to make that leap, because like here on earth, like there is such an incremental process to evolution. It happens step by step by step, like millimeter by millimeter, teeny tiny little incremental steps. And so the disconnect can happen though when your brain is like, you know, I want to lose 100 pounds, and your body is like, there only is ever going to be like the food that I'm choosing to put in my mouth right this minute, or the food that I'm not choosing to put in my mouth right this minute. Like there is no such thing for your body as losing 100 pounds. It's just not even possible. There's only the choice that's in front of me right now. So like the goal to lose 100 pounds like fails more often than it works, mostly because it's really not possible for your body to do, versus like a goal that says, I'm going to eat in alignment with what makes my body feel best, or something to that effect, where it can be more aligned with the incremental steps that you'll actually have to take to make any kind of change. And these are the 1 degree turns. So it's like, for example, back when I was at the beginning of my weight loss journey, it wasn't even about the weight loss so much as it was truly about, I don't feel good. I don't feel good like this. I want to feel better. And so I looked around at like, what are the biggest culprits that are most likely making me feel bad? And, you know, the 4 bags of gummy bears every week, yeah, that probably wasn't helping a whole lot. That sugar was not my best friend. And so the incremental change that I made was not to cut out gummy bears. That felt impossible at the time. It was to buy cherries instead. And when I would normally want the gummy bears, I would eat the cherries and have as many cherries as I want. And that satisfied the sweet craving enough to get me through like the hardest part of like withdrawing from sugar. And those are like, that's what I'm talking about, like a 1 degree turn, like just not, I'm going to lose 100 pounds, but I'm going to make this substitution so I'm not eating gummy bears anymore. Like that's a goal that you can really actually accomplish. You know, there's a solution to that goal. To lose 100 pounds, that's a series of millions of choices that are going to have to get strung together in a particular order. Like it's just not even possible for us to comprehend like that level of a big goal or a big change. And so 1 degree, like 1%, what would it look like to do 1% closer to what would help your body feel better? Or like, this is kind of her takeaway as far as like integrity and the way of integrity. She's not necessarily like coming from a moral place so much as like an engineering kind of place, which I absolutely love. She says, like, you know, kind of like from an airplane's perspective, like structural integrity, there are millions of parts to an airplane. And if even one of them is a little wobbly or out of place or whatever, then there is a risk that the entire structure is not going to be sound and that there is potential for danger or a crash or something like that, some kind of devastating malfunction. And the same is true for us, that if we are not aligned, body, heart, mind, soul, if there's part of us that is answering to something that is not just our own internal flow of energy, that's when one of those pieces gets out of place, and there are bound to be devastating failures. And so she says, like, you know, some of the ways to recognize if you're out of integrity, meaning like you're disconnected from your true nature in favor of satisfying the cultural expectations of you. So a good example of this would be like, for me, for example, if I had gotten married instead of canceling my wedding, that would have been a really good example of the only reason I would have gotten married at that point was because I thought I had to, because I said I would. And if that's the only reason, that's why I canceled, because I don't want to do this. And so I would rather live through the chaos and the unknown of what it's going to be like to cancel my wedding and tell everybody in my whole life that that's what's happening, instead of going through with this thing that the only reason I would be doing it is because society says, like, you have to keep your word. Well, am I going to like be cool with society, or am I going to be cool with myself? And that was absolutely like one of the best things I ever did for myself, was being true to my true nature instead of the culture. Let me see. Ooh, yeah. So these are the statements that she says, like, if these are happening in your world, and to the degree that they're happening in your world, this is kind of the sign that you're out of integrity, which usually feels eventually like you are lost. Like, I'm stuck, I'm lost, I don't know what to do next. And that's pretty much a surefire sign that, because you're trying to live according to a recipe outside of yourself instead of listening to what comes naturally to you. But that these statements may be like, to the level that they feel like relaxing or like giving you permission to be more free. These are like literal steps that you can take to like come back into integrity. And the reason I love this list is because it sounds very opposite to how like New Age spirituality teaches you to talk, like in glowing terms and like positive affirmations and whatever. It's like the things on this list don't sound like that. So yeah, I'm going to go slow. So if you want to try it out loud, feel free. Obviously you don't have to. But like I tried all of these out loud, and some of them felt like, I don't feel that way. Like, that just doesn't like ring anything inside of me. And then some of them felt like, oh God, it felt really freeing to admit some of these things. So, you know, try it out loud if you want. Okay, the first one. My life is not perfect. I don't like the way things are going. I don't feel good. I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm scared. I'm not at peace. I can't find my people. I'm not sure where to go. I don't know what to do. I need help. Several of those for me felt like, not that I know how to fix it, but even just admitting that it's true was like a shift all by itself. And that's what she says about like the way that we take ourselves out of integrity is through dishonesty. And dishonesty doesn't have to look like you creating some, Dr. Evil type plan to deceive and hurt other people. Dishonesty is as simple as somebody asking you, "Hey, how you doing today?" And you say, "I'm fine." And on the inside, you're dying. You just lied. You said, "I'm fine," and you're not. And so, like, how often do we lie? How often do we lie to protect ourselves? How often do we lie to keep the peace with other people? How often do we lie by omission, by just making sure to not let somebody know that I definitely disagree with what you're saying? Like, we just let them believe that we're on the same page. Like, that's not harming anybody. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe nothing is universal absolute truth. So everything depends. But when I know in the past, when I have done that, when I have, said I'm fine, when I'm clearly not, that there are probably things that I could say that still protect me, that still don't give away all my life secrets, like you don't have to like be fully transparent with anybody. You don't owe anybody that. But there are probably things that I could say instead of "I'm fine" that would be a lot more honest and still respect my boundaries and their boundaries. Some examples. I have some thoughts. How you doing today? Do you really want to know? That's number one. Because that one is like, I'll give you the answer. I'll tell you the truth. I truly will. But do you actually want to know if I'm okay today, how I'm doing today? And most people are throwing that question around. They don't even want to know. They just are like, it's small talk. It's like a passing thought that they say when they're feeling socially awkward is, "How you doing today?" So if you're prepared to be honest, do you really want to know? And give them a chance to be like, yeah, I do. I would love to know how are you today? And now you're in a real conversation. Easy peasy. If you don't want to be honest, if you don't want to, like, you're not going to tell them the story. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to tell you anything about how I feel right now. And you're asking me how I'm feeling, but I'm not going to lie. Okay, so what does that sound like? Maybe it sounds like I've been better. It's not the best day I've ever had. Like, what if you admitted that? What if you just said, like, I've got a lot on my mind. How's that feel? Could you say that? Like, does that feel like that 1% category of, like, you don't have to tell them anything you weren't going to tell them. You just need to not hide how you're really feeling. That when you do that, like, that is where rejection comes from. That's what self-rejection is, the only real rejection that ever happens, where we deny our own pain and suffering. We want to, like, do the thing where we jump to the positive and jump into the vortex, get back in the vortex and, like, feel better and, get back up on the positive, the high flying disc, and, like, the positive end of the spectrum. But, like, any amount of time that we spend feeling anything at all, having emotion, having feelings or sensation in our body, whether they feel good or feel bad, is letting us know that our guidance system inside of ourselves is working perfectly. Like how Martha Beck put it in the book of it, the the way of integrity is that there are these beasts that exist in the forest of doom, or whatever she called it, where like you're lost in the forest and you kind of sleepwalked. You don't know how you got there. You don't know where to go next. Like you're just lost in the forest. And there are these beasts that exist there. And the beast's job is to like help you to know. They are relentlessly letting you know that you have diverged from your own inner truth. And when you are in the presence of these monsters, these demons or whatever that are haunting you, that is letting you know that you're out of integrity. And that's where she says, like, how do you get back into integrity? Try to lie less often. Try to be more honest about what's real right now. And that's freaking scary. That's really scary. But let me tell you what's worse are these monsters. And that's why they suck so bad, is because they're trying to get you to not stay there. They don't want you to camp out in the forest where you don't know what's going on. And so these monsters are super uncomfortable to drive you out of that forest. And it's a process to get out of the forest. Highly recommend that book, by the way, The Way of Integrity. Thank you, Maddie. She put the link there in the website, in the chat. Okay, so this monster, the Dark Wood of Error. Thank you. That's what she calls it. I wrote it down. Good job. The first one is purposelessness. That when you feel, and this is a big one for me because purpose has been such a big deal these last few years. Such a big deal. And I think, like, again, when you feel negative emotion, it's not wrong, because I think I've gotten so close to my purpose that, like, at least I can see it enough to like want to internalize it inside of me and carry it and own it. And I want to be the one, and I'm going to like do all these things. And it just was too heavy to think I'm going to carry this and I'm going to do this. Like, the purpose that wants to work through me in part is so much bigger than me. It's not my purpose, it's a purpose, and it's coming through lots of us at the same time. Sometimes it's my turn to do a piece, and sometimes somebody else is doing a piece. Then they show me their piece, and that inspires a whole nother piece. Like, it's not my purpose, it's a purpose. But when you're feeling purposelessness, that is a surefire sign that you are wandering around in this dark wood of error where basically you sleepwalked there doing what you thought you should be doing. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I went to college, I got a job, I got married, I had the kids, I bought the house, I did the sports thing, I was the soccer mom, I blah, 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 blah. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. I followed the rules. And now I'm waking up in a sense of like, nothing in my life is meaningful. Talk about overwhelming. When it's like literally nothing in your life is meaningful. Like, yeah, that's a horrible feeling on the inside. And it didn't get like that overnight, and you don't get out of that overnight. But what you can do is turn towards the light of your own inner truth 1% at a time, 1 degree at a time, one little bit at a time. Like she says in the book, like, over a journey of 10,000 miles of like an airplane or whatever. Like, if you, every half hour, you take that airplane and you turn it to the right 1 degree, and then in another half hour, you turn it to the right 1 degree. And then another half hour, you turn it to the right 1 degree. You'll end up somewhere very different than if you had just flown straight. And in almost no time, like, you can get somewhere completely different. So these little incremental steps in the 1 degree turns, like, they add up so fast. And purposelessness is the first of those monsters. The second monsters that she talks about are mood monsters. So states like clinginess and despair and depression, that each of us has our own unique brew of bad moods, that some of us turn inward and get really down on ourselves, really depressed, really like just sunken in, like lifeless. Other people get really friggin' mad and hostile towards everybody, and they shoot it out into the world. So whether you're shooting it at yourself or you're shooting it out into the world, neither is noble, and these are letting you know that you're not lined up and choosing things in alignment with your inner truth. These wild beasts, it's their job to make your life unbearable when you stray from your true path. So grateful for these wild beasts that torment us so and refuse to let us rest when when we're choosing these things that just, they're not ours. They call it Mount Delectable, or she does call it Mount Delectable, where like we can decide within our culture, like what is the epitome of success, and that becomes Mount Delectable. And so, there was a time in history where being a millionaire was like Mount Delectable, and now that feels like, dude, there's so many millionaires out there that billionaire, okay, that's really where it's at, and that's Mount Delectable. Like, when's it going to be trillionaire, whatever. But it's like culture gets to decide what's up there. And then basically everybody in the culture climbs up Mount Delectable to try to get to this culturally agreed upon epitome of success. And you just keep sliding down Mount Delectable. The monsters chase you up there. They're with you the whole time. And Martha says, like in her book, about how like she's coached people who basically live at the summit of Mount Delectable. Like people who, she talked about one guy who like sold or like took his company public and made $200 million in one day. And he calls her drunk that night and is like, when's it ever going to be fucking enough? It's not enough. It's not enough yet. And I really thought this time it would be enough. When's it going to be enough? And so it's like, you just keep falling back down because that's just not what it is. That's what culture has agreed on. And none of us, like literally none of us, are here for that. Like, so again, it's like God asked me, like, what makes you think that you need to do all those things that society says are the right things? Like, where are you getting that's the roadmap you're supposed to follow in the first place? Like, it was always meant to be your own internal guidance system guiding you. But that doesn't mean that your time in the forest is wrong. That doesn't mean that your attempts to climb up Mount Delectable are wrong. That like, even as you go forward and you come out of the dark wood of air and you're mostly living in alignment with your integrity, that you can still pop back in there. Like, we sleepwalk in there. So like, you don't know that you're going there until you wake up and you're like, shit, purposelessness, anxiety. Like, I was back in there like just a week ago, like mostly I'm not in there. And yet it's like when you get into like new spaces within your life, like it can trigger old patterns because, oh great, now you're ready to heal yet another layer of this. If you stay in the dark wood of air for long enough, your physical vessel will deteriorate. It cannot survive in there. And the longer you stay, the more physical ailments your body will rack up. The pain will come, the aches will come, the breakdown of function of what there's, organs and all of it's supposed to be doing. It just cannot function in that environment. The other pieces are more external, where she says like consistent relationship failures are basically the result of, if you're not walking your true path, you can't find your true people. So when you're wandering around in the confusion and lostness of living by somebody else's recipe, you're finding, basically she says, like, you're putting a pretend personality out into the world who's most likely going to bump into another pretend personality out in the world. And then what you create between those two is a pretend relationship. And that's most of what goes on. So yeah, if you have like a long history of broken, failed relationships behind you, like basically don't worry about it. It just means that like you were in the dark wood of error when you met those people, and that those relationships, they were never going to work out anyway, but that they did help exaggerate the sense of, I don't like this. I don't like how this is going. This is not it. It's not this. So consistent relationship failures, also consistent career failures, and basically for the same reason that, like, I knew a person like this where he had started multiple, I'm talking like maybe 7 or 8 businesses, and he was barely 35, and none of them had worked. Like basically 8 startups, like 8 non-starters. And like it kind of like made me really scared for stepping into the entrepreneurship space. And that's probably one of the reasons why I waited so long, because I was like, it's so easy to start something that's not right for you and spend all of this time and energy and passion and all of these resources into this project that truly wasn't aligned from the beginning. And so, yeah, it has to fail. If it's not aligned with your true self, the best possible thing for it to do is to crumble under your feet like it never existed in the first place. So grateful. The last one that she gave was recognizing addictions. And that does not have to be a substance. Like relationships can be addicting, social media can be addicting, numbing of any kind, whatever you're using for that can be addicting. Drama and gossip and watching other people's stories instead of making your own, like all of that can be really addicting. And that addiction and numbing, again, is a sign that you are somewhat out of integrity, because it's the discomfort that you're numbing, and the discomfort is coming from the separation between who you really are and what you're choosing in this moment. So there are, let's see. Ooh, here's another fun list that came out of the book. Okay, so these are checking for the dark wood of error syndrome, which basically means you're in the dark wood of error. Number 1, many of my daily activities feel meaningless. Number 2, my job feels like a heavy burden. Number 3, I have trouble sustaining loving relationships. Number 4, I have frequent infections, colds, and flu, etc. Number 5, I don't feel seen or understood by anybody. That one really tugs at me because I felt that way a long time. Number 6, my relationships are often troubled by anger and mistrust. Hello. Wow. Other people seem to be accomplishing great things, but I just don't measure up. Number 8. I'm only laughing because I'm like, yeah, that sounds like me at 20. I have friends whose company I don't actually enjoy. Yeah. It's better than being alone, right? If you feel that way, then yes, it is. And when you've overdosed on those friends whose company you don't enjoy, eventually, for me, there was eventually a turning point that said I would rather be alone than surrounded by people that feel like they're draining the soul out of my body. But it took me a long time to get there. Number 9, I have aches and pains that limit my desired activities. Number 10, I frequently feel annoyed with whoever happens to be around me. Again, that one is like, whoa. Hello, me at the software company, where literally anything anybody said ever was like, please shut up. Please stop talking to me. Number 11, I often feel so worried I don't sleep well. Troubles in sleep can be very indicative of there is stuff happening inside of you that, like, in your wake state, you are not acknowledging. And when you let your guard down, when you fall asleep and you're unconscious, then the truth can come into your awareness and you have troubled sleep. You have bad dreams, you have whatever. And again, it's like, yeah, definitely been there. Number 12, I don't feel like my work contributes anything important to the world. So these are things that contribute to that feeling of being lost, where you don't know where you are or what to do next, or if what you're doing even matters. Why am I here? What is the point of all of this? Like dark wood of error, where, dang it, we wandered astray, listening to what they told us we should be doing. And that's not wrong. That's like, as Elizabeth Gilbert says, it's a good guess, and all any of us can ever do at the onset of our lives is pay attention to what we can see and take our best guess at what's going to bring you happiness. And if what you did was model what you were taught from your parents, and that's the path you took to try to find happiness, like, good guess, good try. That's okay. And if at any point you wake up and you feel lost and you can admit that I don't like this and I want something different, I don't know what to do, I need help, like, that's where the next chapter in the process is meeting the teacher, and how she says, like, basically, when you're ready, the teacher appears. Let me get back there. Yeah, meeting the teacher. She says, like, I mean, in the story, which she's writing based on the Divine Comedy, which I don't even think I've ever heard of that, let alone read it. But when she said Dante's Inferno, I was like, oh, okay. So it's, yeah, maybe the same thing. I should have looked it up. I don't know that. But it's like a miracle in the story when Dante, like, meets this old poet from, like, hundreds of years before, who's his favorite poet, and he, like, guides him, and, like, that's a blessing and a help, and helps him proceed, like, through the forest towards the exit of the forest. And, like, it was a miracle in that sense, but that this miracle happens, like, to all of us all the time. And that, ooh, here we are. It's a Joseph Campbell quote saying, "A mentor arrives shortly after a hero has accepted a call to adventure." I'm going to say that again. "A mentor arrives shortly after a hero has accepted a call to adventure." And what I think is so profound about that is, so often we are clinging to our current life, saying, bring me the next one, and then I'll let go of this and go over there. And that is not how it works. You got to recognize that this isn't the right one. This isn't it. Not this. It's not this. Okay, I give this back. Now you have nothing. Now you've accepted the adventure of finding your own way, and the mentor is, like, right there. But you can't wait for the mentor. You can't, like, yeah, like, basically how she puts it, like, no mentor is going to be able to give you integrity. Like, nobody can give that to us, but a soul teacher can help us get in touch with our own inner knowing, our own inner teacher. That, like, the teacher you meet when you're lost in the woods, that external teacher, like, that's a blessing, no doubt about it. But all they're there for is for you to get in touch with your inner teacher and your inner knowing of what is true for you personally. And then your inner teacher will walk with you all the way through to the fruition of who you were born to be. And it will come through being 1% more honest about who you are, and then 1% more honest about who you are, and then 1% more honest about who you are. And do that for the rest of your life and see what happens. Like, a lot has come out of it for me so far, as like, if I'm being honest, trying to prep for these live streams have been heavier than what I really wanted to be doing. And I was like, okay, so how could I make it lighter? And I basically decided, like, what if you just showed up? What if you put to the test this idea that your contribution is just being? Like, your worthiness, your value is created just by you showing up there. There's nothing fancy to say. There's nothing fancy to do. There's nothing, like, no point to make. There's no gap to close. There's no productive thing that has to happen. Like, what if I went in just knowing that I am enough simply because I arrived? And let that be the end of the story. Like, what if you did that? And today I tried it, and it's been so fun. And more than the fun that I'm having here, because I always have fun when I'm in the live stream with you guys, more than that, though, was the ease of these last several days of just knowing that preparing for the live stream is not my job. She says that there are 3 types of no, this was a different one. This was Byron Katie that I've never really listened to her material, but amazing stuff that is also on the live stream prep playlist for this week. But yeah, she says there's 3 kinds of business: my business, your business, and God's business. And when we start trying to do other people's business or God's business, again, we're back in the dark wood of air. That's 2 different authors. And I'm sure, I don't know if they're connected or not, but that's what it feels like. We're back in the dark wood of air trying to do something that is not our job, trying to deliver on something that we think we should be delivering on because of whatever cultural understanding we were born into. But really, at the end of the day, like, what is your business? What does that consist of? And where is the boundary between what's your business and what is somebody else's business? And I personally think, like, getting really clear on that is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves, because I think, again, like, those mood monsters of, like, anxiety and depression and hostility and blame and anger and, like, all of these states that don't feel good to be in, that those are honestly coming from some sense of, I am trying and failing to do your business or to do God's business, or I'm off my truth. And now I'm in somebody else's territory, and now I'm anxious and don't know what to do. And it's like, well, for starters, drop their business or God's business and focus back on your own business. And I know that's definitely something that I can get up to, is like, oh, here, let me help you with that when nobody asks me. Yeah, it's a thing. Oh, that's a bunch. That's like a lot of stuff. I'm going to put my little book down. I'm going to take a drink of this. And I'm going to read the chat. Oh, Fola, we missed you too. Oh, so good. Irene says, I'm really working through clearing out lately. A lot of energy that's negative have been coming in to work through. Yes. That reminds me back to the Matt Kahn session around healing shame, where, like, shame is that immovable object that will not let you forget about the unhealed wounds that your psyche is still carrying. And that as shame bubbles to the surface, that the part of the reason that it's happening right now, like in whatever moment it's bubbling to the surface, is a lot because you are ready. You have the tools, you have the skills to cry these tears, to voice this pain, to process this old hurt into a lesson learned, or a way that you can connect in even greater compassion with your fellow humans. Like, there are positive things that can come out of our pain. That's the concept of the wounded healer, right? Is that, when we suffer, we figure out ways to heal ourselves, and then we can help other people to feel better too. So yeah, I think, and especially around the Lionsgate portal, like, it wanted you to see the divine brilliance of who you are. And it wanted you to get a sense of, like, what are the unconscious patterns that are stopping you from showing up like this in the world. And so much of that is our unhealed wounds, our unchecked fears that we're too afraid to face yet. But again, it's like, if we can relax into, like, negative emotion doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or that something has gone wrong, and trust that if a painful thing surges to the surface, I mean, at that point, we have the option, and you don't ever have to choose to, embrace it or face it in that moment. You can definitely press the snooze button on it again. That's what happened the first time. That's why it's in there to begin with, is that when the original hurt happened, it was too much for you to process. Your coping skills weren't well matched to the level of healing that trauma was asking for from you. So because it's too much, we press snooze and it goes down into our body to hang out and wait for its moment to bubble back up to the surface. And when it bubbles back up to the surface, it's really nudging us. It's tapping us on the shoulder to say, I think you can handle this now. But if you can't, if you truly can't, press snooze on it again. Jump back to your positive thoughts. Go distract yourself with something else. Like, you don't have to face anything just because it's coming to the surface of your experience. But I do tend to think that timing with those things can be really helpful. Like, and this is something I was telling Maddie about yesterday, about how, like, I was driving over here to use the internet at my brother's house, and I I was, like, on the road, like, pulling up to a stop sign, and as I was looking out the window at the oncoming traffic, I just started, like, whimpering and crying, just like, and there was just, like, a few tears, and I turn onto the highway, and I get going, and I just, like, kinda whimpered and cried, like, the whole way to here to use the internet to talk to Maddie, and I was fine. Like, there was no thoughts, there was no, like, sense of, like, what are these tears for? Like, what am I healing by crying these tears? Like, I knew none of that. It just was, I'm crying. And there was, like, these two inner voices that were really funny. Like, I'm crying, I'm already crying. And the one inner voice, like my inner critic, says, like, what are you crying for? Like, you don't even have a reason to be crying right now. And the other voice was like, isn't me crying enough reason to cry? Like, obviously I need to, kind of thing. So, like, again, kind of going back to one of those God questions of, like, why do you think you need a reason? What makes you think that you can't just cry because you feel like crying? And, well, so I did. I kinda, like, leaned into it and, like, cried even extra just to, like, take advantage of, like, the tears are flowing, let me release even more tension in this moment. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's like our emotions themselves are not truly what haunt us so much as, this is an Elizabeth Gilbert quote, as the emotions that we have about our emotions. So it's like, it's not even the fact that you feel sad, it's that you're, like, feeling mad because you're sad that is really the problem, the self-judgment that says, like, you're not allowed to be sad, you're not allowed to cry without a really good reason, um, which just isn't really true. It's kind of a figment of our imagination. Which, speaking of, thank you, Andrea. I'm planning to do it again on Sunday. So this was kind of my test run for the group coaching program. I'm having a very similar impulse of, like, the plan that you make is outdated the second it's made. To, like, truly go to the leading edge of, like, what's ready to unfold, there can't be a plan because, like, you don't get there. You don't even know what it is until you're in that moment. The leading edge is fresh every single moment. And so I'm feeling, like, such resistance towards making a plan, having a script, having an agenda for the session. And God's like, why do you think you need one? Why can't you just go there? Why can't you just show up? And I'm like, ooh, scary. Scary. Why? Why is it scary? And so, yeah, I've been working through it, and it is a little bit scary. And I think, maybe there are things that could go wrong, maybe, but at the same time, like, I feel like this is what is being true to myself. This is what is letting my body relax into a greater level of freedom and making it feel like the load I'm trying to carry is manageable. Because that's, like, where all of this came from, which I think is amazing that, oh, this is a good analogy too. Dolly she told me something that she realized last night, and it gave me this analogy around self-worth. And the wording that she used was lack of self-worth. And kind of like it was a binary variable, like either you don't have self-worth or you do have self-worth. And in that moment of, like, hearing her say lack of self-worth, that realization blossomed, and in response to that realization was another realization about, it's not binary, it's a sliding scale that's infinite in both directions, and in the middle is zero. And it's a lot like a bank account, like a bank balance that you can spend infinite number of times. So, like, talk about literal, true, divine abundance. But it's like, okay, so if you like, let's just say, an example, like you're going to apply for a job, go into a job interview, and you like want to be confident in that job interview. Well, that takes a certain balance of self-worth on the positive side to be able to walk into a space where you know you're being judged like a job interview, and to carry yourself with an understanding of the value that you do and do not provide. Just knowing that you're not there to prove yourself, you're just there to demonstrate it. Let's say that that experience costs like $1,000. And if your self-worth bank account is sitting at 100, like you basically don't have the funds, the energy, resources, the self-worth to write that check. So to be confident in the job interview, like you don't have access to that experience because the self-worth bank account doesn't have enough resources in it. And it's absolutely possible to write checks that you can't cash, like thinking that you're going to show up confident to a job interview, and then it goes horribly. And basically, the check bounces. And now you're assessed new trauma for trying to step into an area where you don't have the funds to back it up. Now you got that on your conscience where you tried and you failed. And that is like going negative on your self-worth. It's like taking money out of the account. It's overdraft fees and penalties and just driving you deeper and deeper into the negative self-worth pile. And it's like, again, like when you want to step forward in your life and say, I don't like how this is going. Being able to say that, being able to admit that out loud to other people, again, you're going to need a positive balance in your self-worth account. And it's probably a decent chunk that it's going to take to actually be able to pull that off. And it really got me thinking about like starting my group coaching program. I was amazed because I felt like, wow, I can't hardly even believe that I have enough self-worth in my account to like write this check of like, I'm going to launch this group coaching program. I can't believe it. Look how good I'm doing. Turns out I bought the experience of launching the program, which I could afford. Turns out running the program is like triple the cost of, like, takes triple the self-worth that starting the program takes. And I think this may be relatable because so often we do have the funds to start something, but then when you get in there and the challenge is bigger than you were expecting, or there's bumps in the road that you weren't expecting, or all of a sudden the timing happens and it's like all the shit hits the fan or whatever, other life happens. And all of a sudden it's like, I can afford the 10,000 to start the program, like the energetic chips, the energetic currency of self-worth to like launch this thing. But now trying to actually run it is taking, well, it's showing me that, like, again, there's no top end to the spectrum of like how much self-worth one can possess. There is no such thing as enough. Again, that's just, that concept doesn't even make sense because it just depends on what size of a check are you trying to write. Because if you're trying to live like a little life where you don't say anything to anybody and you don't go anywhere and you don't ever interact with another human being, you can sit at a zero bank balance with your self-worth and it's not going to agitate you. But as soon as you think, I want more friends, or I would like to get into a relationship, or I wish I had a better job, those are checks that, like, if you're going to actually have that experience, you need the self-worth in the account to back it up. And that really also got me thinking, and this was what Dolly said, that kind of started this whole thing in the first place, which was that at first she had identified with having a lack of self-worth. And as she sat with that, she realized that that really wasn't true, because when she fixed our shower, that gave her some self-worth. When she took the deck off the lawnmower and like fixed the thing and took the battery out, that gave her self-worth. When she mentored the kids and like got them together and taught them this and whatever, like that gave her a sense of self-worth. So it really got me thinking, like, what are the things that you do that make deposits into that self-worth account? And whether you're starting at negative 5,000 and you're trying to work your way back to a zero balance, or you have 10,000, which sounds like a lot until you're like, the check I want to write is 100 grand. So it's like, I need more self-worth. And that's why I signed up for Matt Kahn's Angel Academy. That's why I was watching the Elizabeth Gilbert interviews, because again, it felt like a relaxing way to try to lighten my load. And in the process, I definitely stumbled onto, gosh, it like feels like it even transcends self-worth. It is just a divine connection, like a solid connection between me and my higher power. And at that point, it's like like joint assets, like I'm not writing checks on my account. I'm writing checks on our account. So like the group coaching program, for example, I decided like scrapping the agenda and I'm going to show up. That's what my humanness is going to do. And I've had this conversation with my God that they're going to do the talking. Cool. Just like today, just like I showed up today. Like my humanness is going to show up and then you can do the talking. Okay, cool. We've divided, this is my work and this is your work. And so again, there's like this ease when I will let myself have it. This ease of like, you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to like make a plan. You don't have to know what's going to happen. The knowing what's going to happen part is definitely soothing to like my anxious mind. But remember, anxiety is one of those things that shows us like we are disconnected from our truth to begin with. So again, it's like bringing it back over and over to what is true. What is ultimately true in this experience? And what I'm finding is this sense of this unconditional love that my God has for me. And with that unconditional love, that unconditional worthiness, that foundation that is there no matter what I choose, it's like my whole life just freed up. Like everything I had planned, like everything I was going to do, it had remnants of the forest in it. Like even having an agenda for these live streams, like and having like a set topic that I'm going to talk about, that I made that plan like at the beginning of this year and I've been living it, and it's been kind of like my training wheels and like letting me practice my live streams and like all of that. But now it feels like a greater level of ease to shed the structure of having a plan and to just simply show up with whatever energy I'm carrying at that moment and trusting that it will be exactly what that moment needs, that there's actually no way to mess anything up. There's like no such thing as right and wrong, that is such a human concept that again, when you get to like a 5D non-physical energy, infinite intelligence perspective, like it's not that you're enough, you're everything. So what is right and what is wrong? What does that mean? It doesn't exist. Like and it's part of the illusion. That's what I was going to get into was, so this conversation with Maddie yesterday, we recorded it and we're going to release it on the channel sometime. It was so good. It was so good, so powerful. And it was like, again, the same thing of like, let's just show up and let's just like, not like I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Like not like, oh, I'm going to like, let's have this awesome magical conversation. It was like, let's say this thing that's true. And then let's listen to her say her thing that's true. And then I'll say my thing that's true. And it's like one decision at a time, like just one moment at a time, one thought at a time. And what ended up coming out of this conversation was like I said, like I feel like I've gotten so clear in this perspective that my God has, where nothing needs to be different. Like nothing needs to change, nothing, you don't need to do anything, you don't need to be better, you're already perfect just the way you are. And from there, your action kind of serves two purposes so far that I can see. One, your action is to take care of yourself and any that are like actually dependent on you, like small children or whatever that you've signed up to care for. Your action is for that. And your action is for answering the question, what would delight you most at this moment? So you get to sing and dance and make art and smell flowers and look at clouds. And you get to do these things with your action because it's fun for you, because it feels good for you. So there's like an ease and like a like a safety of this unconditional foundation of support and love and acceptance no matter what you choose. And so you're not enough, you're everything. And that really gave me this perspective of like, obviously, I'm not always in this mindset, right? And sometimes we can see through the eyes of source. Like we can, like we're tuned in and aligned with our higher self such that there is no separation between us. Like it's so delicious. And when you're there, milk it for all it's worth. And that was like kind of the theme of our conversation yesterday. It was just milk it for all it's worth. Um, and sometimes we kind of like the dark wood of error where you sleepwalk in there and wake up and you're like, how the hell did I get here? Like we wake up back inside the illusion. And the very definition of illusion is that you do not see that it's fake. That's the whole point. If you could tell that it wasn't real, you wouldn't call it an illusion. So illusion implies that you are lost inside of it. Like you cannot see that you're even in an illusion. That's like the whole point. And so it was so fun because I could feel like this whole idea of like speaking what's true, even if you don't know, like I have nothing to back this up with. And the first thing that came out was like, so I feel like though that there are signs that you can see even while you're asleep in the illusion. There are things that you can pick out that can let you know this is an illusion. And you can start to kind of like when you're dreaming and like there's something so crazy that kind of, I don't know if you ever pop into like more of a lucid state in your dream where the crazy thing helps you realize like, this must be a dream. Like this can't be real. And then you know you're dreaming. Like, again, that's a very awesome place to be. But so it's kind of like that. Like, what are the signs that can help us see when we are in like smack dab in the middle of the illusion? And the very first one, and this feels like the most profound, is that you want something to be different than it is. That's sign number one, that this is an illusion. Whatever it is that you're spinning inside of, when you're wanting it to be different, that is not your true nature. Your true nature doesn't care if anything is different or if it's all the same or what you choose or what you don't choose. Doesn't care. You're loved. You're loved and you're enough. You're more than enough. You're everything. You're safe. You are unconditionally held. So if you want something to be different, I'm thinking that is a surefire sign to know that you are in the illusion instead of aligned with your higher self. Number two is that you feel stuck. And again, I would say see number one, because when you feel stuck, think about stuck. What does that even mean? What does it imply? It implies that where I am right now is not correct. See number one. You want something to be different. Like when you, even in your stuck place, like when you align with your source energy, they ask you, why do you need to be somewhere else? Look how amazing this place is. Like you don't need to be anywhere else. You're okay. Everything is all is well. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is off track. Nothing is out of timing. Every place that you are is exactly where you're meant to be. So what does stuck really mean? The third sign that you are in the illusion is that time is involved. And that is because that on a non-physical level, time does not exist. It does not exist. Like that conversation with Maddie yesterday, we were in there for 3.5 hours and it like flew by. Other than the fact that we stopped to take a potty break in the middle, like I would never have guessed that that was a 3.5 hour conversation. It was awesome. Because we had stepped into a place where we were more aligned with our higher self, where literally time does not exist. So if you feel late, if you feel like hurrying, if if you're trying to make something happen in the future, or if you're trying to sort something out that happened in the past, these are all signs that this is the illusion. This is not real. This is not who I really am. This illusion is helping me wake up to who I really am, which exists outside of time. It's not bound by time. So when you're feeling bound by time, that's the sign that you're in the illusion. Number 4 is very similar to number 2, but that you're feeling pressure. Again, see number 1. The sensation of pressure comes from the level of expectation of what you think you need to be in the moment compared to what you feel capable of delivering. And the gap between is the intensity of the pressure, or just a little bit of pressure or a lot of pressure, right? So again, though, who says that's wrong? Why can't you be under pressure? Why does it need to be different? Why is the state of being under pressure less desirable than the state over here? Because again, from the non-physical, it's all the same. It's all equal. All the emotions are equal to each other. So trying to push your way away from pressure is a sign that you're kind of like fighting it out with the illusion. Number 5, and this one like really landed in my core. Anytime your enoughness is in question, that is a sign that you are inside the illusion, you're inside your cultural conditioning, because as far as your higher power is concerned, there's never a question around enoughness. Like, again, there even isn't anything such as enoughness according to the higher power. It's like, that is such a relative term. Like, enough for what? Like, enough compared to what? What does that even mean? Because when you are everything, when you are like back to your roots of being source energy is everything, everything that's physical, everything that's non-physical. So enough for what? When your enoughness is in question, this is a sign that you are in the illusion and not aligned with your true self. Number 6 is that you are seeking justice or punishment for somebody else's bad behavior. This is a sign that you are inside the illusion, because again, the love is unconditional. So if you are seeking justice, what does that say about what's going on like out in the world? Like, you're looking at something, and again, we go back to number 1, you're wanting it to be different than it is. And the last one, and this again like really landed in me because I feel like I spent so long of my life in this one, and that is feeling alone. Because again, you are everything. So how can you be alone? If you are everything, alone implies separateness. It implies that there is something outside of you that is missing from where you are, and you are everything. So being alone is an illusion that like all you got to do is wake up to the fact that this is an illusion and turn inward. God, what would my higher power, my own personal higher power, nobody else is telling me what my God has to say to me, but asking, my God, what would you have me know today? What would help me in my pursuit of being of the highest good on this planet? What knowledge would help me most today? And I even want to read you the one from today. I don't remember what it said, but it just popped in my head, so we'll just read it. Okay, so I say, my beautiful, loving God, what will you have me know today? And they said, my dear being, it is fully true that your essence is love. You can trust that. You are not who you once were. Trust in your own evolution and the guidance inside you. You are good. You are good. Identify with me and nothing else, and allow truth to have a voice in all rooms. You are good. It is safe to trust us on that. It is safe. It is safe. You are safe. You are safe with me. This is safe. I am safe. I am always safe. I am solidly connected to my personal higher power, to my personal God, and I am safe. I don't know about you, but for me, that like melts the tension off of me. And so again, like, I don't know who I'm talking to, whether this is my God or my imagination. I don't know. I don't think it matters, because the relief of this truth is it is viscerally felt. It is melting tension from inside my being. It is letting me sink even more deeply into my own personal freedom. No matter what I choose, my higher power loves me unconditionally. There's nothing to measure up to. There's no enough award to win. Like, you're already enough. You're everything. So, like, anything that you do is to either take good care of yourself or to delight yourself. What would delight you most in this moment? Ooh, I think going outside, walking around the yard, picking up the dog, drawing a tarot card, having a drink. Like, what would delight you most in this moment? And obviously, we aren't there all the time. We aren't like, I know I'm not like constantly tuned in to that frequency. Like, there are definitely times where, like, even just within this last week period, like within the last 7 days, where I felt more confused than clear. And again, like, it comes and goes, and the illusion comes and goes. I personally don't think it's a matter of like you wake up out of the illusion one time and now you're good to go. Like, the illusion comes over us in an instant. We sleepwalk our way into it with our unconscious patterns. Thank you, Lionsgate Portal, for bringing up more of those unconscious patterns for us to be more aware of, so that we can more easily, more quickly, and with spending much less time in the dark wood of error, we can recognize the illusion for what it is. The invitation to wake up out of our cultural conditioning and back into like what is true inside of you, inside of every moment. So good. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Regina. I love making my videos. And I love using my voice. So I'm glad you enjoy it as well. Um, yeah, this is one of those things that, like, what would delight you most in this moment? And I personally have a regularly scheduled live stream, just more than anything else, because I am such like an overdoser when it comes to fun, that like I'll just like do the thing and that's fun until I'm sick of it. And so I would live stream every day if it were up to my old self, and then probably eventually I would burn myself out on that. And so I don't live stream every day. I live stream once a week because I want it to stay more fun than burdensome. And so when it started to be heavy, like, it got heavy almost immediately, because like initially when I set out to do these live streams, I was doing 3 transits every Friday, like trying to cover 3 transits. That's so much. Oh my gosh. Especially where I'm like such a newbie to astrology and like still learning. Like, that was so much study and preparation. And I did that for a couple months, and then I started limiting it to only 2 transits, and then it was only 1 transit. And then this week I'm like, I just can't even do 1 transit. It's just too much. I just can't. It's too heavy. I don't like it. It's not delightful when it's heavy like this. And would I rather show up and stick to the plan, or would I rather follow what's delightful for me? And even that, like, just because you decided to do the delightful thing one time, like, again, doesn't mean that you're going to do that in every moment. So, choice by choice by choice by choice, like, it's kind of just being aware, like how she said, and how Martha Beck said in that book, The Way of Integrity, how like the first step of like seeing that you're out of integrity is not like not just jumping over to full blown honesty like immediately day one, but like not changing anything actually, but just being aware of like how often are you lying? How often are you saying things that aren't what you really mean, or leaving out the part on purpose that you think is going to upset somebody else? How often does that happen? And she said, this is your first step of like coming back into integrity, is not changing anything, but just being aware of when that's happening and how often it's happening. And are there certain places in your world where it's like always with that friend, like I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, or always at my job, or always with my partner, or always like, is there some area of life where you lie, where you're more dishonest than other times? And at that point, you really got to like kind of evaluate, like, could you be 1% more honest in those situations where you feel like you have to hide the truth of who you are? Um, Not that, and how she says at the beginning, like, you don't have to change a single thing. Just be aware and be with yourself, in that moment where you choose to speak something like, I'm fine, when you're not. On the inside, even though, yes, you were dishonest in that moment, like on the inside, you can still be with the truth. Like, even if you don't admit it to anybody else, like you yourself can turn towards like the fact that I'm really not fine, and at least give your own attention to the fact that there's hurt in there that is wanting to be acknowledged and expressed. And yeah, like through the 1 degree turns or 1% changes, like a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Like, instead of I'm fine, I've been better. Like, at least now I'm not claiming something that's not true. It's true. I've been better. This is not my best day. There's lots of things that you can say that are still technically true, that are not giving away the whole farm to somebody who, like I said, like, do they even want to know? Do you really want to know how I am? Is that a real question? Do you mean that? Mm. I I feel like I'm kind of wrapping up with this. Let me see if there's anything else I want to share. I do want to offer just a baby love letter of gratitude for this bubble of energy. The like sitting in here has been relaxing and enjoyable, comfortable, easy, loving. All is well. You are loved. You are enough. You're so enough. You're more than enough. You're everything. I am loved. I am everything. I can show up buck naked, totally unprepared, and still be everything. Nothing needs to be different than it is, but even when I wake up inside the illusion that I wish it was different, all is still well, and I am still loved. This is here. This is here inside of all of us, unconditionally waiting inside of each one of us. And even when we can't feel it, even when we're lost, not knowing what to do. Even that cannot stop how held we truly are. Well-being is dominant. It is infinite, it is everything. It's more than enough. It's everything. It's all there is. Anything less is part of the illusion. Thank you. There's truly nowhere in the world I would rather be than right here, right now. Thank you. I feel like I could sit here all day in that stream. Feels nice. This was so needed. Just listening to you quiets my anxiety and self-doubt. I'm honored. If I can help even one person see through the brilliant illusion that they created for themselves back into the true nature of what they really are, I mean, even just one time of that is such icing on the cake when you think about, like, I'm loved and worthy without ever lifting a finger. So just showing up is all you ever have to do. And then to think that it helped somebody. That's that purpose that has a life of its own. You know, it's not my purpose, it's a purpose of more people feeling more love on this planet. And I'm happy to show up in my human form and do my part, whatever that looks like. And so much of it is simply allowing myself to claim the unconditional love that is always mine. And as I do, I offer different things to the world. Like, as we let more love into who we are, we offer something different. That love, like I said, like, it's not even, like, it feels like at this point, my self-worth, like, it's not just my account, it's a joint account with Source Energy's self-worth. And there's a lot that you can write a check for when you have access to that. And allowing ourselves to have it, allowing ourselves to have inner peace. It's not required. You're not doing anything wrong when that's not what's going on. But the only way to have inner peace is to grant it to yourself. I believe to the core of my being that that is true. Yeah. This has been such a good time. Thank you so much. Whether you were here live or you're watching the replay, I am so grateful for your presence in this space, this energetic bubble that we all co-created together. If you haven't already and you feel like leaving a like on this video, it does help this work reach more people. Not that it has to, right? That doesn't have to happen. But if you're inspired and you think that other people should see this, I do encourage you to leave a like, leave a comment, share it to people who you think might enjoy it or feel relaxed by it. Yeah, whatever feels aligned with you speaking 1% more of your truth. I am fully supportive of that. And I also am fully supportive of you staying exactly how you are right now. because you are already loved and you are already worthy. And it is literally my honor to deliver that message through a human vessel. So thank you so much for receiving it. And until next time, you take such good care of yourselves. And so will I. Okay. Okay, bye.